The night was always the hardest time for Yunji. When the world went quiet, the strange memories came alive. Tonight, the dreams were different, more clear, more real. She saw a big room with metal walls. Screens covered every side of the room. People in strange uniforms moved quickly. Some looked human. Some did not look human at all. A woman who looked like her, but older and stronger, stood in the center of the room. "Prepare for advanced jump sequence," the woman said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes showed something else, something powerful. Yunji woke up with her heart beating fast. Sweat covered her forehead. Her small bedroom felt too tight. The walls seemed to close in on her. Outside her window, the city of Seoul was sleeping, but inside her head, entire universes were moving. She reached for her notebook. It was hidden under her bed, away from her mother's eyes. The pages were filled with strange drawings. Not the drawings of a normal teenager. These were detailed maps, battle plans, complex shapes that looked like they came from another world. Her hand moved across the paper. She drew without thinking. Ships that looked like they were made of light, planets with strange colors, paths that connected different star systems. Each line felt like a memory. Each dot felt like a place she had been before. At school the next day, Yunji tried to look normal. She kept her head down. She tried not to think about the dreams, but something was changing inside her. During history class, Mr. Park was talking about old wars. He showed pictures of battlefields. Yunji saw something different. While other students saw old tanks and soldiers, she saw strategies. She saw how battles could have been won differently. Her mind was working in ways that did not make sense. "Park Yunji," Mr. Park suddenly called. "Can you tell us anything about this battle?" The entire class looked at her. Jae-hyun and his friends started to laugh. They always laughed when she was asked a question. But today was different. Yunji looked up. For a moment, her eyes were not the eyes of a quiet schoolgirl. They were the eyes of someone who had seen entire galaxies. "The third division was positioned wrong," she said quietly. "If they had moved 20 degrees to the left, they would have won the battle in half the time." The classroom went silent. Mr. Park looked surprised. Jae-hyun's laugh died in his throat. Yunji realized what she had said. She looked down quickly. Her cheeks turned red. She wanted to disappear, but something had changed. The memories were getting stronger. They were not just dreams anymore. They felt like real memories. Memories of a life she did not understand. Who was she? What had she done? Why did these memories feel so real? Questions burned in her mind, but answers were far away, like distant stars waiting to be discovered. Something was coming. Something big. And Yunji knew she was going to be at the center of it. After the big presentation, everything changed for Yunji. Dr. Kang invited her to his special classroom after school. This was not a normal meeting. This was going to be important. The classroom was different when no other students were around. Old books covered the walls. Strange maps hung everywhere. Maps that did not look like Earth maps. They looked like maps of entire star systems. "Sit down," Dr. Kang said. Yunji sat. She was not nervous. She was ready to learn. Dr. Kang pulled out an old file. Its pages were yellow. Some were falling apart, but the information inside was clear and strong. "Your name was Area Raymond," he began, "but you were more than just a military leader." He showed her documents, papers that talked about her past life, about how she had not just fought battles. She had made peace. She had talked to alien races. She had done things that most people could not imagine. "You were a diplomat," Dr. Kang explained. "When other people wanted to fight, you found ways to talk, to understand, to make peace." Yunji looked at the papers. The memories came back like waves. She remembered meetings on big space stations, talking to leaders from different planets, finding ways to solve problems without fighting. Dr. Kang showed her a special medal. It was old, but it looked like it was made of something that was not from Earth. Strange marks covered its surface. "This is from the Galactic Council," he said. "They gave it to you for stopping a war that could have killed millions." Yoon-ji touched the metal. Memories rushed into her brain. She saw herself standing in front of alien leaders, explaining, listening, finding ways to make everyone happy. "You were not just a fighter," Dr. Kang said. "You were a problem solver, a leader who understood that talking was sometimes stronger than fighting." The weight of her past life became clear. She was not just a schoolgirl. She was someone who had changed entire star systems, someone who had made big choices that saved millions of lives. "Why are you telling me all this?" Yoon-ji asked. Dr. Kang looked serious. "Because someone needs to remember," he said. "Someone needs to know that humans are capable of much more than they think." Outside, the sun was setting. The school was quiet, but inside this classroom, big stories were being told. Stories about human potential. Stories about hope. Yoon-ji realized something important. Her life was not just about what happened in school. Her life was about something much bigger, something that connected to the entire universe. She was ready to accept her legacy, ready to remember who she really was. The old antique shop sat at the end of a small street in Seoul. Most people walked past it without a second look, but something pulled Yoon-ji toward the shop that Saturday afternoon. Her mother had sent her to buy groceries, but Yoon-ji found herself standing in front of the dusty window, looking inside. The shop was filled with strange things. Old books, broken clocks, weird metal objects that looked like they came from another time. An old man watched her from inside. His eyes were different. They were not like other people's eyes. They seemed to see more than normal eyes could see. "Come in," he said. His voice was soft but strong. Yoon-ji should have walked away. She should have continued to the grocery store, but her feet moved by themselves. The bell above the door made a quiet sound as she entered. The shop smelled like old paper and metal. Dust moved in the sunlight. The old man stood behind a small counter. His hands were wrinkled, but they looked strong, like hands that had done many things in their life. "I have something for you," the old man said. He reached under the counter. Yoon-ji did not move. She did not feel scared. She felt like she was waiting for something important. The old man pulled out a small object. It was a medallion, not big, about the size of a coin, but it was heavy with history. Strange marks covered its surface. They looked like writing, but not any writing Yoon-ji had ever seen. "Take it," he said. Yoon-ji's hand reached out. The moment her fingers touched the medallion, something happened. The world changed. Memories crashed into her brain like waves. Massive waves of information. She saw ships bigger than cities. She saw battles that lasted years. She saw herself, but not herself, giving commands that changed entire star systems. Her name was Area Raymond. She was a human military leader, but not just any leader. She was the person who broke the Krelthari Empire, an alien civilization that had controlled hundreds of planets. Millions of lives depended on her choices. She remembered standing on a big command bridge. Alien races worked together under her leadership. Humans were not just survivors. They were fighters. They were leaders. The memories were so strong, so real. When Yoon-ji opened her eyes, she was on the floor of the antique shop. The old man was looking at her. He knew. He had always known. "Who are you?" Yoon-ji asked. The old man just smiled. "Someone who remembers," he said. The medallion was still in her hand. Its metal was warm, like it was alive, like it was waiting to tell more stories. Yoon-ji stood up. She was not the same person who had walked into the shop. Something had changed. Something big was coming. And she was ready. The robotics competition was the biggest event of the year at Sunwon Academy. Every team wanted to win. Every student wanted to show how smart they were. Jae-hyun's team was sure they would win. They had the best equipment, the best computers, the most money from the school. They looked like winners before the competition even started. Yoonji's team was different. They had old computers, no special equipment. Nobody believed in them. Nobody except Dr. Kang. The challenge was complex. Build a robot that could solve 3 different problems. Each problem was harder than the last. Most teams struggled with the first task. Yoonji sat quietly. Her fingers moved over the computer. But she was not just typing. She was thinking. Her mind was working in ways no one could see. The first task was to build a robot that could move through a maze. Most teams made complicated designs. They wrote long computer codes. They tried to make their robots smart. Yoonji did something different. She looked at the maze, but she did not just see walls. She saw paths, strategy, like she was planning a space battle. Her mind connected dots that others could not see. Her robot was simple, but it was smart, very smart. When the first test started, everyone watched. Jaehyun's robot got stuck. It could not find the right path. It moved in circles. It failed. Yoonji's robot moved like magic. It found the fastest path. It solved the maze in half the time of other teams. The judges looked surprised. Dr. Kang smiled. The second task was harder. The robot needed to pick up small objects, move them, place them in exact locations. Most robots failed. Their hands were too big, too slow. Yoonji's robot moved differently. Its movements were clean, precise, like it had been trained in something much bigger than a school competition. Again, she won. The final task was almost impossible. The robot needed to solve a complex math problem. Build a small structure. Do it all in 10 minutes. Other teams looked worried. They knew this was hard. Yoonji closed her eyes. For a moment, she was not in the school anymore. She was on a big spaceship, solving problems that could save entire planets. Her robot worked perfectly. It solved the math problem. It built the structure. It did everything faster than anyone thought possible. When the results came, no one was surprised anymore. Yoonji's team had won. Jaehyun stood silent. His team had lost. Everything they thought they knew was wrong. Yoonji looked calm, but inside, she remembered battles, remembered solving problems that could change entire civilizations. This was just a small test, but it was the beginning of something much bigger. The school assembly hall was full. Students sat in rows. Teachers stood at the sides. Everyone was waiting for the big presentation about the robotics competition. Jaehyun was supposed to go first. He always went first. He was used to being the center of attention, used to being the best. But today was different. Yoonji's name was called. She walked to the stage. The room went quiet. People who had laughed at her before now looked curious. Her steps were different, not like before. She walked like someone who had walked on the decks of massive spaceships, someone who had given commands that changed entire worlds. The big screen behind her lit up. But Yoonji did not look at the screen. She looked at the people. Most people think humans are small, she began. Her voice was calm, strong. The students leaned forward. Something was different about her. People think we are weak, she continued. But that is not true. She started to tell a story, not about the robotics competition, but about something much bigger, about human history that no one knew. She told them about the Krultheri Empire, about how alien races thought humans were nothing, just a small species on a tiny planet, but humans proved them wrong. We are not just survivors, Yoonji said. We are fighters. We are leaders. Her presentation was not like other school talks. It was like a military briefing, like a report from someone who had seen things no one else had seen. She showed pictures, strange pictures, ships that flew through space, battles that lasted years, strategies that changed entire star systems. Jaehyun tried to interrupt. "This is crazy," he shouted. But no one was listening to him anymore. Everyone was listening to Yunji. She explained how humans had beaten an empire that controlled hundreds of planets, how they had used intelligence, strategy, things that no one expected. Dr. Kang watched from the side of the room. He was smiling. He knew what was happening. Yunji was not just giving a presentation. She was waking people up, showing them that the world was much bigger than they knew. When she finished, the room was silent. No one moved. No one spoke. Jae-hyun stood up. "She's lying," he said, but his voice was weak. Everyone could see he was scared. Yunji looked at him. Her eyes were not the eyes of a schoolgirl anymore. They were the eyes of a leader, of someone who had seen things beyond imagination. Something had changed, forever. The quiet girl was gone. Something much stronger had taken her place. Monday morning came too quickly. Yunji walked into Sunwon Academy with the medallion hidden under her shirt. Something felt different. She felt different. Jae-hyun was waiting by the lockers. His friends stood around him like a pack of wolves. They always waited for her, always ready to attack. "Look who's here," Jae-hyun called out. "Space Cadet is back." His friends laughed. They made silly rocket sounds. They moved their hands like flying ships. Yunji had heard these jokes 100 times before, but today was not like other days. She remembered battles that lasted longer than their entire lives. She remembered making choices that saved millions of people. These kids meant nothing to her now. "Hey, weird girl," Min Seo shouted. "Are you listening?" But Yunji was not listening. Her mind was somewhere else. She was remembering a space battle near the Orion cluster. She remembered how she had beaten an enemy fleet that was 10 times larger than her own. Jae-hyun stepped closer. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue." Something inside Yunji changed. Her eyes looked up, not with fear, but with something else. Something powerful. "You know nothing," she said quietly. Her voice was different. Not the voice of a scared schoolgirl, but the voice of someone who had commanded entire armies. Jae-hyun stopped laughing. Something in her eyes made him take a step back. During math class, something strange happened. The teacher gave a complex problem. It was a problem that usually took the whole class to solve. Yunji solved it in 2 minutes. She wrote the solution on the board. Perfect numbers. Perfect logic. The teacher looked shocked. "How did you do that?" the teacher asked. Yunji said nothing, but her eyes showed she knew much more than anyone in the room. At lunch, things got worse. Jae-hyun could not let it go. He was used to being the top student. He was used to being the best. "Think you're so smart," he said, walking up to her table. "Prove it." The entire lunchroom went quiet. Everyone was watching. Yunji looked up. Her hand touched the medallion under her shirt. Memories of alien languages, of complex battle strategies, of saving entire civilizations. "I could explain things that would break your small mind," she said. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight, like the voice of someone who had seen things no one in this room could understand. Jae-hyun did not know what to say. For the first time, he looked scared. Something was changing. Yunji was not going to hide anymore. The quiet girl was gone. Something much stronger was taking her place. The memories of Aria Raymond were fully awake now, and they were ready to show the world who she really was. The bell rang loud and sharp. Students pushed and shoved their way out of the classroom, but Yunji Park stayed still. She always waited, always watched, always tried to be invisible. Sunwon Academy was not a kind place for someone like her. She was small for her age, with thin shoulders and hair that never seemed to stay neat, no matter how many times she brushed it. Her school uniform looked slightly too big, as if she was wearing someone else's clothes. When she walked, her steps were quiet. So quiet that sometimes people would bump into her without even noticing. "Watch where you're going," Jae-hyun Kim shouted, pushing past her. His friends laughed. They always laughed. Yunji said nothing. She just moved to the side, her eyes looking down at the floor. In the crowded hallway, She was like a shadow. Other students seemed to shine so bright. Jae-hyun was the school's top athlete. His friend Min-seo was the mathematics champion. They wore their achievements like badges. Yeon-ji wore nothing. She blended into the walls, hoping no one would see her. Her desk was always at the back of the classroom. Not by choice, but because the teachers seemed to forget she existed. When roll call happened, her name was sometimes missed. When group projects were made, she was the last one picked. Sometimes she wondered if anyone would notice if she simply disappeared. But Yeon-ji had a secret that lived deep inside her brain. A secret that she did not understand. Sometimes, when she was very quiet and the world around her stopped moving, she would see things. Strange things. Things that did not make sense. She would see massive ships floating in darkness. She would see bright lights cutting through black space. She would see herself, but not herself, wearing a strange uniform, standing on a big platform, giving commands. Commands that seemed to make entire worlds move. These memories felt real, but they also felt like dreams. Crazy, impossible dreams. Her mother worried about her. "You are always so quiet," she would say. "Why don't you make more friends? Why don't you join some school activities?" Yeon-ji would just smile, a small, sad smile that said nothing. In math class, while other students struggled with complex problems, Yeon-ji would sometimes see solutions in her mind. Not normal solutions, solutions that seemed to come from somewhere else, somewhere far away. Her teacher would look surprised when she quickly solved problems that took others minutes. But she never showed excitement. She never raised her hand. She just wrote down the answer and waited. The other students called her weird. They whispered behind her back. "Look at Park Yeon-ji," they would say. "She thinks she's so smart, but she never talks, never plays, never does anything." They did not know. They could not know. Yeon-ji carried a universe inside her head, a universe of memories, of battles, of strategies that could change entire civilizations. And right now, in this small classroom in Sunwon Academy, she was just a quiet girl waiting for something to happen. Something big was coming. She could feel it. The school year was ending. But for Yeon-ji, everything was just beginning. She was not the same girl who had started the year. The quiet student who tried to hide was gone. Now, she stood tall. She walked different. She saw the world different. Her classmates looked at her now. No more laughing. No more jokes. They saw something else. Something strong. Jae-hyun, who used to bully her, now walked past her quietly. His eyes showed respect. Maybe even a little fear. Dr. Kang watched her. He knew what was happening. Yeon-ji was becoming who she was meant to be. Not just a student, but a leader. During the last school assembly, something surprising happened. The school principal called Yeon-ji to the stage, not to make fun of her, but to honor her. "Our school is proud of Park Yeon-ji," the principal said. "She has shown us what true intelligence looks like." Yeon-ji remembered her past life, remembered battles in space, remembered making choices that saved entire planets. This small school award meant nothing compared to those memories, but it meant something here. Now, her mother watched from the audience. She did not understand everything, but she saw her daughter was different, strong, confident. After the assembly, Dr. Kang gave her one last gift. An old book. Its pages were yellow. Its cover was falling apart, but inside were star maps, strategy notes, stories of human achievement. "The universe is waiting," Dr. Kang said, "and you are ready." Yeon-ji understood now. Her life was not about fitting in, not about being like everyone else. Her life was about something bigger, about showing what humans could do. She looked out the school window. The city of Seoul looked small, but she knew the world was much bigger. The universe was much bigger. Her memories of being Arya Raymond were clear now. Not just dreams, not just strange pictures, real memories of fighting, of making peace, of leading. The medallion hung around her neck, a reminder of who she was, who she could be. Jae-hyun and his friends watched her leave. They did not laugh anymore. They did not make jokes. They understood something had changed. Yeonji was not just a student anymore. She was a leader, a fighter, someone who knew the universe was full of possibilities. The quiet girl was gone forever. Something much stronger had taken her place. The universe was waiting, and Yeonji was ready. Dr. Kang was not like other teachers at Sunwon Academy. He was old, very old. His hair was completely white. His hands shook a little when he wrote on the board, but his eyes were different. They were sharp. They saw more than other people's eyes. He taught physics, but sometimes his lessons sounded like something else, like stories from another world. After the incident in math class, Dr. Kang started watching Yeonji, not in a scary way, but in a way that said he knew something important. One day, after all the other students left, he asked her to stay behind. "Sit down," he said. Yeonji sat. She was not scared. Something told her this conversation was important. Dr. Kang pulled out an old book. Its pages were yellow. The cover was falling apart, but the pictures inside were clear. They showed ships, massive ships, ships that looked like the ones in her memories. "Do you know what these are?" he asked. Yeonji looked closer. The ships were not like Earth ships. They were different, alien, but also familiar. "These are from the Galactic conflict," she said without thinking. Dr. Kang smiled, a small smile, but a smile that meant something big. "Tell me more," he said. And Yeonji did. She told him about the Krelthari Empire, about how humans were not just small creatures, about how they fought back, about how she, as Arya Raymond, had changed everything. Dr. Kang listened. He did not interrupt. He did not look surprised. It was like he already knew. "Your memories are coming back," he said. It was not a question. It was a fact. Yeonji touched the medallion under her shirt. "Who am I?" she asked. Dr. Kang looked out the window. The schoolyard was empty. The sky was turning dark. "You are more than they know," he said. "Much more." He told her stories, stories about human fighters, about battles in space, about how humans were not weak, how they were strong, how they had surprised everyone. "The universe is bigger than this classroom," Dr. Kang said. "Bigger than this school, bigger than everything you see right now." Yeonji listened. Every word felt like a piece of a big puzzle, a puzzle she was trying to solve. "Why are you telling me this?" she asked. Dr. Kang's eyes became serious. "Because someone needs to remember," he said. "Someone needs to know the truth." The physics classroom felt different, like a secret meeting place, like a place where big stories were shared. Yeonji realized something. Her life was changing. The quiet girl was gone. Something much stronger was coming, and Dr. Kang was helping her remember.